Planet.
The following is a paid program. The opinions are those of the hosts and guests and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick.
All right, here we go.
Like me, a guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do, a guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show. You want to know? It's time to talk to you. You're live.
All right, folks. Very good. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Here it is, July 1st and July 4th weekend is here. It's kick off the summer, although we've already hit those cookouts and barbecues and got the boat out and everything's kind of already in full gear. Remember what we're also celebrating for the 4th of July as a programming note. Obviously, the holiday is Monday. So we won't be live on the Joe Mangiacotti Show. I think in every program, I think will be replays and so forth for the holiday. So enjoy this fantastic holiday weekend. I will be here Sunday morning, though, at 6 a.m. Mike Wade at 7 and Peter Bluth at 9 o'clock for your Sunday morning talk block. You can join the conversation over the next hour, folks, at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. And you can also text us on our text line, which is up and running. That is 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. And you have the ability to also email me at textjoeontheradio, all one word, textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen in real time. Another way to communicate with the show. Now, that email, folks, is just for when we're on the air. If you're trying to send me something, use the show email. That's joemshow@gmail.com. All one word, joemshow@gmail.com. Follow us on our social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. And we're also, of course, on the TuneIn app. So we're streaming this. You can listen to us on your device at any time. But you can also watch and listen to the show on my social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter at Joe Mangi Show, YouTube channel, LinkedIn, and even Twitch TV at Joe M Show. That covers the housekeeping pretty much, folks. Ted A flying the board back in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Ted A. And hey, have a fantastic holiday weekend. I know you probably got the grill out and everything. You like to do that stuff. Probably sausages, Ted A, I would think. You got to have sausages, right? Maybe he's away from the mic. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. All right. So a lot going on. SCOTUS, of course, being June, has really, got things stirred up with their releases. Now, the 2016 election was probably one of the most influential elections in many, many decades, and not just because Trump beat Hillary Clinton. And I consider that to be one of the most significant accomplishments of Donald Trump, in my opinion, was beating her, because that absolutely altered the course for a little while and was able to do a few things. And that would be what I considered the second most influential thing in best accomplishment of the Trump administration, would be appointing hundreds of federal judgeships, right, throughout the federal court system, in the appellate court system, as well as 3 Supreme Court justices. Think about that. I mean, some presidents go their entire term, maybe 2 terms, without ever getting to appoint even 1 justice. He had the opportunity to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices in his 1 term. And if you think about it, Trump has been having the best second term of a 1-term president. For a guy who wasn't elected a second time, his influence is still being felt every day. Look how many wins and how much effect his presidency has been having on us since leaving office. There's a great Second Amendment victory we just had. The EPA has just been put in their place to some degree. And of course, the issue of abortion being returned to the states where it should have been all along. Meanwhile, we have President Biden in foreign soil, Now, he's gone to Europe more times than he's been to the border, folks, or a baby food factory, or an oil rig, or any of the other right debacles that we have going on in the country. But he loves to go to G7 and all these other foreign countries and hang out with leaders of the appropriate governments. And while he's out there on foreign soil, he takes a swing at, he smashes the US government, or one of the three branches of our political system, a co-equal branch, right? Now, it used to be that politics for our politicians stayed in our borders. You didn't bring it to foreign lands. You didn't bring it with you when you left the country. And when you're on foreign soil and you're surrounded by the media and other world leaders, your job as ambassador of the United States at this point is to point out what a fantastic country we are. And that regardless of any, turmoil happening, we are still the best form of government on the planet. We are still the best country to live in. Don't believe me? Ask the million plus people we let in legally and the 2+ million people who spend their life savings and risk literally safety and life to get into this country. Why? Why are they getting into the United States of America unless we're the best country to live in on the planet? And he went after SCOTUS for their decision on R v. Wade. Now, this is a guy, when senator, he was against abortion. We can roll out the clips of him talking about it. We can roll out the clips of him talking about, just like Hillary Clinton, that marriage is between a man and a woman. But the media is not going to remind you of any of that stuff, right? Because, they evolve. He also used to be pretty tough on crime, by the way. Let's put a pin in that. But he specifically called for a carve-out on the filibuster in the Senate dealing with this decision. Now, he's asked for them before, right? Every time he wants it to go his way, he asks for the carve-out, and the filibuster is no good. A guy that got up on the Senate floor as a United States senator and absolutely went after Republicans who wanted to get rid of the filibuster, that it was an attack on democracy and a grab for power. And the left consistently wants to change the rules when they don't get what they want, right? When they cannot persuade 50+1 of the people to see things their way, they want to change the rules. And now the evidence is all around us, right? The Supreme Court of the United States, a co-equal branch of the checks and balances, it does their job. And they apply the constitutionality of the law presented for argument. That's their role. They're not supposed to be adjudicating in favor of their activism, right? That's not their role, although you think it would be, because if there are some justices who have even self-proclaimed themselves activists. But their job is to see if the laws that Congress passes, the president signs into effect, does it pass constitutional muster, period. That is our checks and balances. You can't keep changing the power structure. That has to remain the same. Our founding fathers laid that all out. You follow the rules, you work within them. It's called checks and balances for a reason. And the court, well, they're appointed for life, so they don't deal with elections and mob rule or mob mentality. They only have to answer to the Constitution. That's it. And then suggesting the packing of the court, that is disgusting. It's so political and transparently political that they lose credibility when they start talking about this. Now, remember, Schumer threatening the justices on the courthouse that they will answer and they're bringing their fire down or whatever he said, man. But 9 justices has worked for decades. See, the power to determine how many justices sits on SCOTUS, it is given to Congress. And it has ranged between 5 and 10, but ever since 1869, the number has been set at 9. It has been politically manipulated over the years, but that was deemed over the line, and it has been left alone at the number 9 again since 1869. There is no need to change it. It's not to become a legislative body. It's not to be something that's played politically. Biden and Shifty Schiff have not only used the filibuster, but they attacked the right, the Republicans, for wanting to eliminate it in the past, calling it a grab for power, calling it undemocratic, which is exactly what they're trying to do now. Instead of stepping back and asking why their ideas can't get support on their merit alone, they want to change the rules to make it happen, to force their way of life on you, make you accept their ideas of right and wrong, or the should and shouldn'ts of the world. Debate and discussion is not the rule. You have to think as I do, or you are a whatever. Insert your derogatory name of the day: Nazi, fascist, Trumpster, Hitler, etc. And by labeling you as evil, you don't have to be heard. As a matter of fact, you can't be allowed to be heard. You're not worth it. Now, a recent poll asked the question, are you proud
1 minute
of the country today? 39% said yes and 56% said no. Back in June of 2011, 69% said yes and only 28% said no. And then another poll is saying 85% of adults say that things in this country are headed in the wrong direction. 92% of Republicans and 78% of Biden's own party, 78% of Democrats are dissatisfied with the direction of the country.
30 seconds.
All right. SCOTUS came down. We're going to talk about the EPA decision and the Remain in Mexico decision, because they're pretty significant as well. SCOTUS has been busy, boy. All right, folks, this is the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. July 1st, my birthday week.
Still got 10 seconds.
So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back on the other side and continue. The lines are open and available at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI. Stick with us. Back in a moment, folks.
Those things we most cherish are all put at risk through the improper disposal of mercury in everyday items. Fluorescent lamps, thermometers, thermostats all contain mercury.
Caller
Mercury
Mark.
Recovery Program is designed to assist your community in this.
show.
Here we go.
Mangiacotti show. We are the show. You want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Welcome back to the second quarter of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and we are live streaming on the TuneIn app, as well as you can follow us on our social media platforms at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I Show. And we're streaming the show, video. Sure, there's a camera in the studio, but the audio is also on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch TV. 617-297-8388 for our text line. Let me go to the phones. Mark has been waiting patiently. Good afternoon, Mark. What say you?
Happy Independence Day.
Thank you. Same to you.
You notice they don't call it that anymore? You turn on the crap mainstream corporate media, they all say, Happy 4th of July, Happy 4th of July. They don't say Independence Day anymore. When I was a kid, as many people called it Independence Day as call it the 4th of July. But they don't want to call it Independence Day. I wonder why.
Yeah, that's kind of fallen by the wayside, hasn't it? You don't hear that referred to it that
Yeah,
much.
they want you to be on the umbilical cord of government. They don't want you to be independent. They want you to be tied to your mama apron strings, which is the government today. That's your mama's apron strings.
Well,
So, anyways, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I mean, they've created a couple, 3 generations of people at the teeth of the government, right? Food stamps, welfare. Instead of being a handout, and helping them up, they've created an incentive program to be generational on welfare and food stamps and public housing. Mark, they missed the point, but see, they think they're building in this block of automatic voters. That's what it's about, man.
Yeah. The government is your mama.
Your daddy.
That's what it is. And your daddy.
And your daddy.
Whether you got a daddy or not, you got one now because
And your
the
uncle.
government
You
is
got
your
your
daddy.
mama, your daddy, and
And
don't
your
forget
uncle.
Uncle Sam. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And he's got a pocket full of cash. And if you're a good man on a Bodie plantation, he'll give you some. If you don't behave yourself, you ain't getting squat. Now, with the, I'm going to make a little prediction.
Okay.
All right. We will be in a pandemic lockdown by the midterm elections. It may not necessarily be COVID-19, could be an entirely new boogeyman.
Well, Joe kind of
But we're
slipped the
gonna
other day,
be-
Mark. He said the other pandemic's coming. Remember that? Joe Biden, when he
Yep,
was
I
rambling
remember
on,
it.
he said the other pandemic.
Right.
So has he been briefed that there's going to be another pandemic? Isn't that cool that we're so advanced in our medical abilities? We can actually look into the future and see that a pandemic, I bet you we even have the ability to manage when it hits, Mark.
Maybe he knows something you don't know. Maybe he knows something that he heard in briefings that he ain't telling you. But Joe being Joe, he let it out anyways.
Yeah.
In other words, he telegraphing his punches.
Yeah. You know, Mark,
These
there was
globalists,
something that got out there in the news. I don't know if you caught it, but was it Martha's Vineyard? Obama's on Martha's Vineyard. I'm always forgetting which island. It's Martha's Vineyard, I believe, right? So he has a $23 million.
Oh, may I say something?
Sure.
May I say something?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Obama, from what I understand, you won't hear it on mainstream media, but he just put a 2,500-gallon
That's what I was going to bring up.
propane tank on his property.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Mark. And that makes you wonder, first of all,
Yeah.
why does he need a commercial-grade propane tank that's costing $75,000 in permitting and installation that can run electricity, cooking, and heat and air conditioning, right? Propane can run everything on your house. Why does he need such a large commercial grade in his seaside mansion? Again, does he know something?
You know why?
No.
Well, he knows he doesn't want his roof covered with solar panels that don't work when it's raining, when it's snowing, when it's cloudy like it is much of the time on Martha's Vineyard. He knows that, and he don't want two unsightly 20 kilowatt wind turbines whirring away by his house all night. So what does he do? He gets a 2,500 gallon propane tank that he's going to have subterranean, buried under the ground, and he won't have to worry about it.
Pretty much. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Mark, anything else you want to share?
That's about it.
All
But
right,
don't throw away your mask, and don't throw away your disinfectant fluid, and don't throw away your surgical gloves and whatever else you had. Keep it all, because you're going to be needing it come November, I'm afraid to say.
Well, the timing sounds just about right, Mark. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN, live streaming on our TuneIn app and, of course, on the social media platforms. So that's how you can listen to it. So, all right. So the Supreme Court has addressed this commonly known as Remain in Mexico policy. Now, the thing about this, folks, and you got to understand, it's as if the media either is ignorant of the most basic understanding of this, or they are well informed, but they decide not to point out what is pretty obvious, I think, to the rest of us. And that is eliminating this to stay in Mexico. And here's the reasoning. When you're seeking asylum, you flee wherever you're fleeing. And when you reach the first port that offers you asylum, that's it. You've got the asylum. You're
Joe from Millis.
no longer in danger. You're no longer fleeing. So you can't flee Haiti 9 years ago, be living in a South American nation, and then the administration changes and you got a vessel, an empty vessel running the country being controlled by his staff, and basically borders are open. And you say, well, honey, let's take the trip because we got to get to the border. You get to the border, they'll process us, and now we get the American dream. We seek asylum. Well, it's not asylum if you're not fleeing anymore. Financial hardship doesn't equate to asylum. It doesn't work like that, folks. So in a 5-4 majority led by Justice John Roberts, found that the Federal Appeals Court was wrong to require the Department of Homeland Security to continue operating under that program. Now, it's known as the Migrant Protection Protocols, but Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy is what it commonly is called. And there's no reason. The percentage of people who actually get asylum is so small because they're not really seeking asylum, and they just are seeking life in America. 508-871-7000. Joe in Millis has been waiting patiently. Hey, Joe, what say you?
Taking my call. So in the final tally, we're going to be receiving about 3 to 4 million illegal immigrants every year until the Biden administration is done. And that's going to be transforming most of our communities into just what we didn't want. Lawlessness, non-vetted persons walking around our neighborhoods, crime-ridden cities.
All right. Joe, though,
This is what we don't want.
Joe, let's be fair here, and fair that a good portion of people coming over are actually what I just said. They just are taking this opportunity to get to America where life is better. Even if you're lower economic class here, it's still a much better life than majority of other countries. So that is a good majority of the people. However, we have no vetting system. We are literally letting terrorists through. and we're letting cartel members and sex trafficking, minor trafficking, drug trafficking. We have the fentanyl issue, which is not overdose, but poison folks. So Donald Trump said it in a crude way. I get it. Everybody's all upset about it. But what he said is they're not sending us their very best. And it's true because we don't know who's coming over the southern border unchecked, on vetted, right? So we do have criminals. We do have cartels, right? We've got some of them, I'm going to call them kids. They're teenagers. Some are actually younger than that, and some in their 20s. The bands, remember we would find the bands, and the bands were color coded. So the cartels are already deciding you're going to get yourself over the border. They say this to them, Joe, and you're going to be a soldier for us here. You, little girl, little boy, you're going to be sold into sex trafficking. You're going to work for us over there. You're going to do that. It's almost like inserting sleeper agents in the country. This is what they're doing. But a great number of them, Joe, to be fair, a good number of those people are going to come here. Yes, they're breaking the law, but they will, for the most part, be law-abiding citizens after that, and they just want to live here. They just want to
20
take the
seconds.
opportunities of living in this country. But boy, Joe, the criminal element outweighs that, in the danger that we're putting our citizens into.
You got a
right,
minute and 10 seconds.
in
Sorry.
that we're putting all of our neighborhoods in by allowing unfettered mass number of people in, Joe, is very
1 minute.
dangerous, right?
What about the ones that aren't being vetted,
That's
that
what
are
I'm saying.
getting around the you're just talking about the ones we're catching that are coming in legally.
And
Now
we
they
got the
want to,
getaways, Joe, right? We
right.
don't
Now
even
they
know
want-
what we don't know, right? I know the Border Patrol gives us an estimate of the number of getaways, they call them, but we really don't know what we don't know. So they might say 20% of what comes over that we catch and we interact with. There's another 20% that we don't. But what if that's 30% or 40%? We don't know what we don't know,
gift.
Joe.
What a gift to the cartels it was to strip the Remain in Mexico law,
Oh.
because now the cartels and the coyotes, they can get paid right away
10 seconds.
instead of waiting for their people to actually make it into the country.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, they have a business model, Joe, and they follow.
Okay, here we
Hey,
go.
I got to take a break right now at halfway through the show. You're welcome to hold on the line, Joe, and we'll finish up your call on the other side. But I have to take the break where I have to take the break, folks. Joe Mangiacotti Show. Stick with us. We'll be back in a moment.
that line to Ken.
You want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. So we kick off July 4th weekend, so I hope everybody has some great plans this weekend and spend it with the family. But don't forget what we're celebrating. Take a moment to pause and remember our independence and what it is that we're celebrating and what makes this country great. Great to the point that we let over 1 million people legally come in, and we have over 2 million people, by all indication, that are going to illegally cross the border without really any consequences whatsoever. And as Joe was pointing out, our caller, we've got the getaways as well. So we're on the phone with Joe from Millis. Joe, did you stay on to finish up?
Yes, I got one. I'll make a quick point
Sure.
and yield to Ken. I would see the main cities that are inviting illegal immigrants and having sanctuary cities. It's just so apropos that their school systems are the ones that are failing the most. And I just think they're going to fail even more. I mean, you're going to introduce thousands of kids that don't speak the language, don't know the laws, don't have any of the medical history that our kids have, and you're going to slap them into all our public schools.
Hey, you make a good point there, Joe, right? All of our kids are born here. You've got this regimen of vaccinations and so forth that you have to take. But we have minors coming in and being injected into our school system, and I've said this over and over again, that when a town or city is growing organically, the town planners, I mean, they have that time to understand, my goodness, the kindergarten, first grade enrollment has really shot up. We have X number of years to make sure our middle school and our high school can handle this. But it's a shock to the system when you dump a lot of people into a community. And then we don't know their medical histories. And we don't know their criminal histories.
And you're putting 18-year-olders and 19-year-olders in the same classrooms as 12 and 13-year-old kids. I mean, because
they're just saying their age, right? I mean, you've seen the video, you've seen the interviews, and you have this obviously latter teenager, maybe even 20 or 21, saying they're 16, they're 15 years old, and there's no way to refute that. And we have to accept what they say. We also, Joe, we're also accepting whatever they tell us their name is, whatever they tell us.
What about the phony documentation, Joe? Do you think they might be coming up with any phony documentation provided by their governments to get them out of their country?
Yeah. Well, Joe, I mean, we've also, the Border Patrol in our military has found in these coyote routes, not only those bracelets that are cut off because they cut them off before they get there, but that's how the coyotes know who's meant for what. But we've also found the evidence of them burning or shredding their current paperwork, the current IDs from where they were living, right? Because again, they're not just fleeing to America. They've already left maybe wherever they're originally from, and they've been living for months to years in Guatemala or some other South American nation, even Mexico. And they're just taking the opportunity to flee into America at this point because they know they can do it, because we have open borders and we have a spineless president who doesn't do his job. He literally does not do his job. You know what I mean, Joe?
Real quick, I'll end because I want to hear Ken. Many of the young ladies coming up from the border are already pregnant. And, you think that the Democrats would want to address that fact. And they want to put abortion clinics in our cities. Maybe they should bite their tongue and put them somewhere near the border.
Well, Joe, it's also another issue and I know it's a very tough conversation to have, and it's not a pleasant one at all, but there are many, in the percentages of women who will be raped during this
line 3
type of a journey is very high, and they even have what they call rape trees where they display the garments. But Joe, I got to let you go there, hold you there, because we're going to move on to Ken. Hey, Ken, what say you? Good afternoon and happy 4th of July to you, by the way.
Same to you, Joe. as Mark was saying, it's a wonderful Independence Day. And I wanted to continue on the discussion on the Remain in Mexico. The rulings, vast majority of the rulings by the court were very good. We're very happy with it. I actually think on this one they made the right ruling because they're not policymakers. And if somebody can suggest otherwise, it's my understanding that each president and administration can determine their own policy unless they're bound by, say, treaty in the case of dealing with another country. So if a treaty were actually passed that amounted to remain in Mexico, then Biden would be bound by that.
Yeah. Well,
But to the extent that he doesn't want to do his job, we're stuck with that.
Yeah, I believe they said nothing prevents an agency from undertaking new agency action while simultaneously appealing an adverse judgment against its original action. You're right. Every administration gets to set their policies, right? Whatever they are, the foreign policy, the domestic policies, absolutely, it's right. But the court, if they accept the case, they've got to hear it and they've got to rule on it, and that's what they've done here. And I understand what you're saying. I mean, the thing here is there would be no reason to have this debate on staying in Mexico if we actually enforced the current immigration law. We keep talking about new law. We don't even enforce what we have for current immigration. Now we do need a complete overhaul, right? I mean, we have to look at this. We have to streamline the ability to come in this country, but in order to do that, or with doing that, we have to actually secure the border and stop people with criminal records or connections to drug cartels from being allowed to enter this country. And that's our right as a sovereign nation to make that call.
But effectively, the fault doesn't lie with the courts. I think the court ruled properly. The fault lies with the voters. And Biden told us what he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we apparently care about this, about the border, but we voted for the guy who wanted an open border. So what are you getting? An open border.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he said right in the debate.
That's reality,
He
folks.
said that. And he also said about health care, right? So not only can you come here illegally, you're going to get health care as well. And he said it in the debate. They all raised their hands, basically. So, yeah. I think the voters got it wrong in this election. 100% got it wrong.
Well, in particular, on this issue, and to some extent, they're going to feel it so hard that you would hope they'd send a message back in November.
Yeah.
But I'm not optimistic that this administration is going to flip with whatever. I mean, if it's, let's say the Republicans barely pick up the Senate and only get 30 to 40 seats, which is way below what I'm expecting. Or if it's blowout, either ended, they're not going to change this policy. Biden basically ignores the open border, doesn't talk about it.
No.
And obviously he's got people that are set on open border. That's what we believe. And the bizarre thing about it is the Mexicans, or Hispanics in particular, are voting Republican now.
Yeah.
So they thought this was a demographic advantage 10 years ago. They kept bragging about that.
Yeah.
It is now.
Look at this, Maya
It's flipped on 'em.
Flores, right? Her flipping that 13th seat there in Texas. I mean, that's huge foreshadowing of what's going to come in November and what's going to come in 2024 if things continue on this rate. And like I said, these polls that are coming out, I mean, 90% of the country's thinking we're in the wrong direction, and that's including like 78% of them are Democrats. So these are in theory Biden supporters who are saying we're headed in the wrong direction. But this administration, Ken, is incapable of course correction. They're incapable of taking a step back and saying, why are my own party looking to replace me in 2024? Why am I going to get primaried? Why is this? No, and he keeps trying to play to that ultra left and appeasing them for some reason. He thinks that's great stuff. But I got to hold you there, Ken. Thank you for the call. We got to fit one more in before we got to go to the break. And what do we have? Tom waiting. Tom, welcome to the Joe Mangiacotti Show. What say you?
Hey, Joe. Thanks. I'm going to be as quick and poignant as I can, and that is on the on the theme of immigration and Independence Day, the point that a lot of people are missing, in my opinion, in this debate is unfettered immigration, unchecked, open borders is the antithesis to the American way. And what do I mean by that? Well, what is it to be an American? It has nothing to do with your color or your heritage. It has everything to do with your spirituality. And no, I'm not talking about religion.
No, I get what
I'm
you're
talking
saying.
about the American way of life.
Yep.
An independent personality,
2 minutes.
self-sufficient, self-sustainable. And when you have to immigrate into America with a legal process of applying fees and all that, it takes a certain caliber person to immigrate to America. And that's the kind of person we want. Somebody who's going to shake a leg, so to speak.
Mhm.
Somebody who's going to put in the work. When you open up the borders, you're going to let in those that are the antithesis
Yeah.
of the American way of life. Not only that, you're going to let in people that are used to government overreach.
Yep.
A lot of people immigrating illegally from Central, Southern America, the Middle East, Africa, over our southern border, are used to living in a country with corruption. And I mean corruption like we as Americans cannot understand. You think American government is corrupt.
Yeah.
Talk to the African governments. Talk to the South American governments.
Yeah,
Come back
Venezuela.
to me.
Ooh.
But these people are used to that way of life, and they're going to bring that pacifism with their view of government here to America. And unfortunately, that's what
1 minute.
the quote-unquote deep state wants.
Yeah.
Is for
That's
these
a good point.
pacified immigrants to come in.
Yeah, Tom, that is a great point that you bring up. Is first of all, actually, couple. The first one being by basically opening the borders, literally anyone can come over, and a lot of those people, not only those being agents of cartels and so forth, but they're also looking for an easy way too. And they've been known, or it is known because they've been let it known that you're going
30
to get
seconds.
welfare and food stamps and health care, and pretty much for them, that's like hitting a lottery in a lot of ways. And I don't want all the emails about equating it to lottery and so forth, but that's a great point. We need people who want to be Americans, who want the American way of life. They want to assimilate.
10 seconds.
They can hold on to their culture and their heritage, Tom, right? But they have to assimilate and become an American. And many of immigrants who have come here have done that. Thank you for the call, Tom. Greatly appreciated. Great call. Folks, we're going to take a break for the fourth and final segment. We'll come back on the other side. Lines are open and available. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Stick with us.
Spring is in the air, and it's full speed ahead for your Worcester Red Sox. And tickets are on sale now. Enjoy unique bobbleheads, Unibank fireworks, and magical moments for your family on the field. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-88.
Earn some extra money, call me at 508-870-5803.
Also, listen to WCRN.
The radio with podcast to broadcast.org.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. So welcome back for the fourth and final segment of the Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti. Happy 4th of July and Independence Day to you and your family. I hope everyone has a fantastic time planned for the weekend and you enjoy the holiday. But remember what we are, in fact, celebrating, and that is the independence that we do have and what it took to get here. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. That's how you reach the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Just finishing up on that, asylum seekers remaining in Mexico, right, we're talking about maybe 10% who get asylum should even be allowed in. And that's because when you reach a port that gives you asylum, you're done. You stop, and you don't have to keep going. The other SCOTUS decision that's out there, and we should talk about a little bit, and that is the Supreme Court restricts EPA's authority to regulate power plant emissions. Now, if you've listened to me at all in over the last several years, you know, one of my issues, one of my pet peeves that I have is the amount of power wielding by these bureaucratic agencies, by people who will spend their life on the government payroll. And I'm not saying that's okay. I don't think elected politicians, should be able to spend their life on the public payroll, but as a job, you can have a career. But these agencies who aren't elected and they're not representative of the people continue to build on their power, and they're given so much. Sometimes we have agencies that have autonomy. Even in Massachusetts, right? You got the Mass Turnpike, and we have authorities. They're literally called authorities, and they don't even answer to the state legislature. So now the court is putting the EPA in their place a little bit. But of course, the left thinks the EPA should have unlimited power because they can fast forward the green agenda. That's what they want there. But in a 6-3 decision, they overturned a lower court ruling that gave the federal agency virtually unlimited regulatory powers. And it's all coming from the Clean Air Act. And that just can't happen. Look, many years. I mean, I'm going back to when I was a state Senate candidate, and I said that we should have sunset clauses in legislation. Every time our legislators make some kind of a rule, authority, or program that they implement through the legislative process should have to include a sunset clause in it that simply says this will go into effect, however, in 2 years, 1 year, 10 years, whatever makes sense for that piece of legislation will automatically expire. It will go away unless Congress redebates it, re-examines it, redebates it, and determine, do we need it? Did it work the way we thought it was going to work? It's not like they don't have the time to do this. I would rather the time allocation for our elective legislative bodies be managing the legislation already in place a little more and stop trying to come up with new laws and rules where we don't need them. And most of the time we don't need them because we're not enforcing the laws that exist, whether we're talking about our immigration laws or we're talking about things like our gun laws. Look at what happened this past weekend. Now we're coming into another weekend as of today, and it's a holiday weekend, long weekend. What are the headlines going to be Tuesday? How many shots are going to be fired in Detroit and Chicago and New York and LA? And how many people are going to lose their lives this holiday weekend because of crime and gang activity and illegal gun possession and usage? Illegal. You don't have a lot of gun owners who are permitted to carry and registered their weapons committing a lot of crimes out there. They're not packing because they're a soldier in a gang or cartel. But I guarantee you, we're going to have some pretty sad and nasty headlines Tuesday. The weather is warm, and we don't, this having no bail under the guise of bail reform, sentences being light, and sometimes charges not even brought when they should be brought. So we don't enforce laws we already have. So it's no big deal. Matter of fact, it's very smart, in my opinion, to say that all these programs we put into place need to have sunset clauses, and that these agencies have to answer to a committee or somebody on the Hill. But whether it's the EPA or the FDA, or you get on the local level, you got building inspectors and historical commissions and things like that, they have a lot of power. And I think it's a good thing that the court has ruled in this case that came in front of them and said, no, actually, you don't have unlimited power. You're not elected people. We saw the CDC telling landlords that they can't evict. Is the CDC going to write a check to their mortgage companies because people have been told you can't get evicted? So even people who can pay their rent, because a lot of people, and you know this, with the stimulus money and what they did with the booster on unemployment, we're actually making more money than they did while working. And if that's the case, why in the world can't you pay your rent? If you paid it when you busted your hump every week for 40 or 60 hours to pay your rent every month, why can't you pay it when that money's being given to you? Never understood that. Now, this case was West Virginia versus the EPA. And it stems from the agency adopting the Affordable Clean Energy Rule of 2019 to replace the Obama-era Clean Power Plan, which was being repealed by the Trump administration after its implementation was blocked in 2016 court ruling. See, the number of Democratic states, including New York, sued to stop the repeal. A federal appeals court in the District of Columbia sided with the states, but struck down both the Clean Power Plan and the Affordable Clean Energy Rule, leaving nothing in effect while the Biden administration drafted a new policy. You know, West Virginia and 18 other Republican-led states and coal companies appealed that ruling. And it made it to the Supreme Court, arguing that the lower court had given the EPA too much authority to regulate emissions. They went even above what Congress intended. And this is what I mean. Not only did they, have this power, but they exceeded what Congress said. The arrogance in that, folks. The arrogance. Even when Donald Trump had taken office, when it came to foreign policy, you had people in the State Department who had been there, again, as career people, who they were bent out of shape, that they were expected to behave and implement his foreign policies. And we saw them say, and some of them under testimony, that they're not, no, this is how we're going to do it. I've been here longer, and I'm going to be here after you're president. We're not going to follow it. We're not going to implement it. And anyone with that attitude can be let go immediately. Again, work within the rules and stop changing or trying to change the rules because you don't like the outcome. That's the system, folks. And regardless of what it might look like or appear to the casual observer, our three branches of government, AOC, that's what they're called, branches, and Congress is made up of two chambers, the upper and lower. This is a throwback to her interview where she had clearly had no concept of how the United States government worked. Even now, she's out there. She doesn't understand about abolishing the court and this. She doesn't get it. She just don't understand it. Now I lost my train of thought. But the point is, we have three equal, right? They're co-equal branches of government, each with a specific responsibility and role to play. And you don't see that, right?
2 minutes.
You look at this and you're like, no, you know, they're always talking the legislative is threatening the judicial, and you know the administration is doing whatever they want with, and they're ignoring, right? How many times has this administration in a year and a half thumbed their nose at the court's rulings, including this one? When they were ordered to let it in place, they fought it and so forth, which I guess you could do. And the accusation is the court appoints itself instead of Congress for these agencies, right? Decision makers on climate policy. Anything to do with the climate or climate change should go through the normal processes here. And this comes back to the left or the green branch trying to fast forward and force the whole green upon us. Well, not sacrificing
1 minute,
own, right? Because John Kerry is still, you know, yachts and planes, and his carbon footprint is astronomical. And this guy's telling you how you need to live. And it's putting America at a disadvantage. I'm all for clean energy. We all are. Nobody's against clean water and clean air. But we have to get there globally, and we have to get there in a logical manner.
30
without
seconds.
Destroying our economy, without destroying people's lives, folks. But I got to tell you what, we're going to have to wrap up
20.
This week's edition of, or Friday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on this long holiday weekend, folks. So I wish again everybody happy
10
July
seconds.
and Independence Day. Enjoy it, and again, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI, and don't forget to check out tjmshow.com. I'll be back at 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Mike Wade and Peter Blue, Sunday Morning Talk. Joe out, folks.
Happy 4th of July, Independence Day.